Hello?
Hey, Teresa, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just perfect. This is great.
Okay.
All right. And can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
And we can zoom in and out of the worksheet as well as we go through this. But
Okay,
and I'm also recording this as we go, so um, I'll send you the link. I'll put it on YouTube so you have it in case you want to revisit anything that we go through.
okay, great.
And I'll also just follow up by sending you this blank template right afterwards so you can see it and play around with it because it's kind of the easiest way to start to learn how it all works.
Perfect.
All right. Um, well, I'll just walk you through this and we can enter in some data and you can sort of see how the formulas work and um, the logic of the worksheet all in all. There are, when you open it up, there's no macros or anything like that. It's just a straightforward spreadsheet. And it has three steps that you see are the tabs, and then a final red tab, which summarizes everything. And all along the way, there are little checkpoints to see, hey, we've added the totals up in a couple of different ways. Um, is everything totaling as it should be? Or is it alerting us that there are things that we haven't completed totally throughout the worksheet? So that's kind of uh, handy as you go along.
Right. Okay.
And the logic of these steps, uh, and I'll walk through it, and then we'll go through and actually enter in some information. Is that in this first step, the idea is that we're going to try and associate any personnel related cost, I'll show you how to enter up here, with the actual people or positions within a department or a division. You can do this at the division level. So we will just end up with fully loaded personnel costs, which you may already have. But if you don't, then I'll show you how to enter those in up here so we can associate them with people or positions. In the second
So,
tab, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so can I just ask you one quick question? So
Sure.
you said you could do this at the department level or the division level. What if we have a division that has multiple account numbers? Could we do this instead at an individual account number level?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can break it down within that division at the account level. Absolutely. And then what we'll
Okay.
end up with is we'll just bring all of the sheets back together again after they're all complete so that we have all the account levels rolling up to a division, rolling up to a department, and then ultimately for use in the priority based budgeting work.
Yeah. So So is that, in terms of bringing all those back together again, is that pretty straightforward and easy to do?
It is, so long as we keep track of the programs themselves. That's the as we get into the second step and we're starting to identify programs and we assign a program number. That's where we're going to want to make sure, okay, this same program exists in this account and it exists in another one, and we just are going to want to make sure that we understand, hey, it's the same program, it's just being accounted for in several of your various divisions or the accounts within those divisions.
Okay, good, because we definitely have a lot of overlap like that.
Great,
Well, I
great.
wouldn't say a lot. We do have some overlap like that.
So long as we're just keeping track that, hey, we called this program Police Patrol over here, and it's program 151, and then now in another division, it's the same program. It's 151, but maybe we titled it something slightly different. We're just going to want to make sure we know which programs to summarize to combine at the end.
Okay.
Excellent. Um, Again, just on at the high level, in this first tab, we're just trying to get those fully loaded personnel costs. And if we know how much each person costs us in total, salary, benefits, insurance, and pension, anything else that we have going on, in the second tab, those people will come up, they'll automatically populate this gray area. And over here, we're going to populate program inventories. And the process that we're going to go through is just to try and understand what percentage of this person's time is dedicated to supporting these various programs that we identify. And then all that happens in the third tab is that we have anything else that we haven't associated with a person. So any non-personnel related line items left in the budget, supplies, services, uh, materials, what have you, anything else that we haven't accounted for already. And then I'll show you how some of these various cost allocation methodologies automatically break up those costs depending on what's the best way to do it. And then in this final
Yeah.
tab, it brings it all together. What I'll say, so I'm going to go back to step one, and what we've done is, say this is division A. If we enter that in right here, then that will flow through for all the rest of them. So just for like titling and formatting purposes, whatever you type into this box up here will flow through. So at least we know the title of the particular division or the account within the division. These cells down here, we've depending on the organization, certain of these columns have been more important to some organizations than others. Ultimately, all we're trying to do is say, okay, if this is whatever division that we're working in, can we enter the department name here, the division, the position title? If you have a position number, like if you have a way of keeping track of your employees by number, there's some sort of um,
So yes,
identifier.
each employee has a unique position number. I don't know that it's easily accessible without looking up each individual employee. I don't know. I have to figure that out.
Okay,
So how does that help us?
how does that help us? Um, if you're ultimately wanting to tie this back, and someone's asking the question, how did we develop these costs? Uh, and you want to, or say you're looking at it next year, and you're trying to remember, how did we come up for this program budget that we're developing? Um, then if we have this information, you can say, oh, this comes right out of our ERP or right out of our whatever system is being maintained by human resources uh, or
Okay.
finance, just for each person. Um,
Okay.
Now, if you if if it ends up being, hey, it's not really useful to go in and find the exact position number, the worksheet still wants especially the position number field and the number of FTEs in the position field to be populated. So I'm going to highlight these, and the reason is because the worksheet is going to try and keep track of who this person is. So if I make this number one, this is person number 2, 3, and 4. It knows now to say, I'm going to take the fully loaded personnel cost for position number one, and when I move over to this second portion, here's where that number one is translated to. It's saying keep track of this person. This person is devoted to these programs that we associate them with, um, and we've developed their costs, so it's unique. It identifies them. If you have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, just for example, and down here you put in another position number one, what it's telling the model is that these two people are the same. They're both
So we're
position number one.
so when, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So is position number the person, or is it the position the person's in, and we could have multiple of those?
Yeah, good question. It could be either one. Um, if you want to identify every single person in your organization, then the position number could be the individual number that belongs to you or Jim or anybody else. If you want to roll up a number of FTEs who by and large do the exact same thing, um, and say that they are one position, you can do that as well. And the way that you would do that, so say these are budget analysts, and they're position number 4, and there are 4 people 4 FTE who are budget analysts, and you want to treat them as one big thing because they all do the same programs for the most part, you can do that. And you do it just like we entered it in that information right here.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
where that comes in handy is if you have a lot of patrol officers or
Or
mechanics.
firefighters or,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
The only trick
Okay.
the only trick is if you are rolling up a number of people into one, um, then as you're entering in over here, here's salary, here's benefits, here's insurance, pension, what have you, and this is in total for this account $10 million. I'm just doing some quick entry here. 500,000. Oh, that's 5 million. These guys are getting paid nicely. Um,
Yeah.
um, and here's $500,000 over here. You would just want to make sure that we get the total salaries for all 4 of these people. You don't have to average it. You don't have to try to break it down for, normalize it to one person. It's the aggregate of all of these budget analysts or firefighters. Does that make sense?
So could we have a combination, use aggregate, as in the case of those services that have a lot of the same types of positions,
Yep.
and then use a single one-for-one position to FTE relationship for those that have just one me, for instance?
Yep. Exactly. So this would be you, and this is one FTE, and this would be your salary and your benefits.
Put the $1 million there. I like that.
We're giving you a raise.
Yeah.
And down here for the firefighters, it's all of it, all of
Okay.
their salaries put together.
Yeah. Okay.
And what you're going to see is, um, so long as we're keeping track, here's the full line item for the salaries, and you actually enter this in. Up here in the gray is meant to tie back to something. And down here, you're actually allocating the costs. You're entering them in and trying to tie them to these specific people. Um, the flag up here says, "Hey, you've identified $10 million, but you've only allocated 1.1 million. That's what this is summing. It's summing everything that you're entering down here." And in the little yellow note, it's saying you haven't allocated 100% of these costs yet. You still have some more work to do.
Okay. Okay.
Very good. So yeah, the idea simply for this first one is just to try and get everything that we can tie to a person or to a position that has multiple people, like the firefighters. Can we get all the personnel costs tied to them, and then we're done with step 1?
Okay.
So in step 2, what we're about to see is that everything we've entered here is going to get translated to the gray area automatically. So here's that budget director. Here are the firefighters, the 4 firefighters. Those totals are up here. They're brought forward, so you don't have to do anything in the gray. It's just going to automatically populate. Oh, and here are those position numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 again. And the idea here is we're just going to go through and enter in the program inventory. And in this place, the program number is what's important. So we want to have unique program numbers. And again, if we don't have them, it's okay. Um, but we want them all to be individual. And again, this is where if we are breaking out across accounts, um, if this program right here is uh, developing the annual CAFR, and that's program number 1, you're going to want to we're going to just try and want to make sure that if this is in another spreadsheet, that program number 1 is also the same over there, so we just don't lose track of it. We know how to combine them at the end.
Right. So would you recommend that we hold off assigning program numbers until we have the tool populated?
Um, you know, well, I'm trying to think because especially since we're going to be doing some of the departments in the general fund are going to be doing some review and revision, and others are going to be developing their inventories for the very first time. Um,
Right.
and they might go through some iteration. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, so long as we focus for the time being while we're getting them ready to do inventory work, um, we can try to help them out as much as possible in this step one on the personnel cost side of it. And then
Yeah.
once they have pretty solid inventories, then we can go through and just populate this and lead them through that stage of the worksheet.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then the way to go through here. So here, this is very good that we have both of these examples. Here's one person. This is the budget director, and for all the programs, here's program 2, program 3, program 4. Um, we just need to assign 100% of their time, and it's pretty intuitive. I mean, uh, the part that where people have a little bit of hesitation is they say, well, I don't know. I've never kept track of my time before. And we're trying to say, okay, but can we get a rough estimate? We don't need to go below 5% unless you really have that level of data, that precision. If you have 5% here in this program, it's 10% over here. This program, you're really spending 50% of your time. Where are we? So it's 65. So we have 35% there. Um, we want it to be accurate, and we stress accuracy and reasonableness over precision. And another reason for this is, um, if you actually did have a time system and you kept track of every hour that you spent throughout the year and what programs that you served, um, by next year, if you did the exact same exercise, those numbers change. Think of snow
Right.
removal. Even though that's probably the most volatile, it's totally dependent on what happens during the season. Um, it's a moving target, and that's why we say, think of how you budget, think of how you look towards the next year. Everybody should be able to do a pretty good job, plus or minus 10%, of understanding where they spend their time.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing that'll probably come up in this area is that someone might say, well, you know, we actually have made reductions in our particular division, and I'm now working the job of 7 people, and so I'm going to allocate 700% of my time to try to reconcile this fact that I'm overworked and I've absorbed several positions. Um,
Yeah, that doesn't work.
exactly. So believe me, it happens, and that's the point that people are trying to make as they fill it out. Is, well, how do I get credit for the fact that now I'm working a lot more than I used to? And it's like, okay,
Hmm.
that's great. We need to talk about that, and maybe that'll come up in the process overall. But for this exercise, you only are 100%. You only are you and the salary and benefits that you earn. So it all adds up to 100. If you're shy of 100, then it'll tell you staff not allocated 100%. If you're that person that tried to get credit for 7 positions, it'll say over allocated staff, and that'll be one of the errors that will show up at the end of the spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And similarly, with these 4 people, okay, if you group people together at a job class level or at a position level, like these 4 firefighters, we're now, since we added up all of their salaries and benefits in that first step, we're only allocating 100% of this staff group of 4. So it's not like you have to now allocate 400% to account for 4 people. It's just, here's 25% of the time that all of these 4 together spend on this program. There's 50%, 10%, 15%. And now all 4 have been allocated to the programs together.
Okay.
These other areas, so if you have something in uh, the accounting fund where you're now keeping track at a program level, some organizations are trying to do that. So this is where you could use this field to enter that in. But again, department and division, if I could spell division one. Uh, this is just for keeping things organized. But the program name and the program number, especially, these are the main things you're going to want to keep track of here.
So Chris, would it be more beneficial under those first three columns, the fund, department, and division, to put the actual account number,
Sure.
or is it more the description?
Um, Good question. So the majority of organizations end up just putting in department and division to keep track of it here. But if you want to develop that level of consistency and put in the account number itself for the department division, of course, the accounting fund, that would be great. And that would also help us keep track of everything.
Well, so is there a way, if we don't put the account number in it, is there another place where we could put the account number?
Sure. And I bet that's what you can use this reference number, which is optional. We can change this to account number.
Hold on, my screen just, okay, I'm back. Where are you? Oh,
Okay,
account number. Yeah, yeah, okay.
let's do that. And I'm going to do the same thing in this first tab. And then now it's already flowing through in the third. And we don't even keep track of it in the fourth, but I will update that. So cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep track
That's
of the account number there. That's perfect. All right. Let's see. Anything else on this percentage area? I think you see, I'm just going in and I'm just typing it in the cell. If you have changes to make, you can just delete it, re-enter it. I mean, it's these are just cells in a spreadsheet,
okay.
and it's keeping track of everything. Oh, another thing is, um, while it's programmed to, let me show you an example. Let's see, say you have the budget director here and you have the firefighters here, and you actually want to insert a row. You can do it, and it will uh, flow through, but we really try to steer you against it. Just if we tried to build it for a ton of positions, a ton of people, a ton of programs, I think there are several hundred, in this case 250. And if you end up with more than 250 in an account, let me know, and I can just expand the worksheet. um, we've just had some very minor issues as people are going through it, filling in some information, and they've inserted several rows or columns. And just every once in a while, it gives you something quirky, like Excel does when you insert some things.
Right.
All right. Okay, so then the final step, you'll see that these departments flowed through, the program name came through, the program number that we've assigned, and now we have this account number. All this is set up for is anything that was of a non-personnel nature, any other line item that we have. So this is supplies, uh, services, outside services. We have subscriptions here, um, whatever the case. And
Yeah.
you can, this is just to literally enter it in from the budget. This is $50,000. This is $200,000, $2 million, and on down the line. And this is kind of neat. So we were trying to just plug in some basic cost allocation methodologies that were automated. Um, and this one right here, you saw these numbers filled in already because we've chosen divide evenly by FTE. So if we don't know any other methodology, and it doesn't make, there's a small enough number, it's most reasonable to just divide up by the FTE and within the account. If you select that, it's actually referencing how we've assigned people to these programs back in step 2, and then taking that percentage of this total line item amount and just spreading those costs to those various programs. And if you choose allocate dollars directly to the program, it takes all those away and you just enter it in where it
Enter.
belongs.
And it wants dollar amounts. You can't say, I want 50% of this $50,000 to go to this one.
Uh, you could. It is still Excel. So if you wanted to go in here and say um, equals zero point 0.5 times
Yeah.
this,
Okay.
you could,
Okay.
and it won't screw up anything. As my wheel starts to spin there. uh,
Well, the problem that we had was when people used percentages, then we got all these rounding errors.
oh, interesting.
So,
um, with allocate dollars directly, like I said, if you choose that, then you can go in and actually enter it in. And then finally, we have we should probably take this out, but if you're working with them or we're working together, we put unsure. And that was really for trying to drive some conversation. If someone's really thinking hard about this, they're trying to do a good job, and they're saying, it doesn't seem like it makes sense if we divide evenly by FTE, and yet at the same time, I don't know what programs this belongs to. And typically, we'll see this because one of these line items is miscellaneous, uh, and
right.
it's a large number, and they're saying, oh, it doesn't seem right that we would just allocate by FTE and we don't know where they go. This was only meant for us to be able to have a conversation about it. Okay, what's in that line item? Do we know? Let's dive into that conversation and try to pick it apart. My warning on this one is that too many times John and I have seen it where the department or division is running out of time to complete the exercise, or they're getting lazy and they just choose unsure when they don't do it for the purpose of having a better discussion. It's just so they can turn the thing in. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, we leave it up to you if you want to leave that one in there.
Okay.
I might just ask. Um, okay, so then in this final one, what you see is it's bringing over everything we've entered in: the department, the division, the program names, the program number, and then now it's summing these program costs, the number of FTE, costs associated with personnel, other operating costs. These are all things that we can use in the final tool itself, which is great. We can use these when we're ultimately building the final model. We'll have that use of resources section over on the right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
this final unpopulated column here in the summary tab is where we might be able to identify program revenue. And the reason that we saved it for last is because now for the first time we're able to see, hey, here's the full cost, the full program cost for this particular program. And now as a department is looking at the program revenue it brings in, it's more interesting to compare those program revenues to this cost that we've just calculated, because maybe it's lower than that cost, and then it sparks the conversation about, wow, this is interesting. We actually don't cover the full cost of this program, or in other cases, it's higher than the program cost, and that's interesting as well because we can start to have that conversation. Wow, we're charging more than what it actually costs us to provide the program, and then we end up with this excess program revenue that we use, to fund other programs. But it's just it ends up being far more interesting to consider program revenues at this stage, this final stage.
Yeah.
So these are just open to be populated.
Okay.
Now, you'll see, here are a couple of different areas where it's saying we need to check something out. This is one of those flags. Something's not totaling overall. So we'd come back here and we're saying, oh, well, this is interesting. Up here we have all of these dollar amounts that we haven't allocated yet. So because we get that, hey, you need to check this out warning flag, that prompts us to be able to go back through, look at these areas. Oh, we didn't even allocate these staff here either. And it's just helpful to make sure that the worksheet is complete. And then when everything is done, this will say ties out, just like this one right here.
Right. Okay.
Cool.
Well, that's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple, right?
Really easy to use.
That's what we intended. We want it to be a total piece of cake. um, you're going to come across a couple of questions as you go through it. Like one that we get is where's the best place to account for overtime? And we usually, instead of trying to associate it with a person in step one, even though you might know what positions or what actual people are responsible for the overtime, we don't want to necessarily tie the overtime to that person and then distribute that person to all of these programs, thereby distributing the overtime costs to all of those programs. Instead, we found that the easiest way is let's consider overtime one of these non personnel related line items, and we have a better sense of understanding where the overtime occurs, which program, and let's divvy it up that way rather than tying it to the person. It's not to say that
Right.
you couldn't do it the other way. You absolutely could. It just seems more intuitive or understandable to associate the overtime with the programs here in step three.
Right, right. That would be true definitely for us, I think, too.
Awesome.
And that would also, we use a lot of temp wages, especially in like our library and parks and rec, and we don't track FTE for temp wages. They get a
Sure.
pot of money and they can hire as many as they need to, as long as they stay within their, allocated budget. So
Perfect.
we would probably allocate temp wages under a step three as opposed to tying it to a specific temp employee.
That's perfect. That's exactly right. Or if you have any other, if you have programs that you don't even have personnel who serve them, let's say the city spends dollars within a particular division or department giving money to another agency, you don't have to have FTE associated with the program to develop the program costs. That's where you would just use whatever that contribution is, or uh, some sort of a transfer, or however you're accounting for it, a grant that's not tied to a person. That's fine. The step three becomes very useful for all of that.
Okay. So just another kind of general question. I'm assuming that this worksheet has protected cells and that they can't just completely go in here and mess it up, right?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, there we've tried to troubleshoot and protect it where we can, but there are still going to be areas where they enter in something that causes a reference error or a circular logic or something like that. If that happens, just let me know. These are the easier things for us to just go back through and tinker with and correct.
Okay.
Probably the biggest thing that I'm going to, as you go through maybe your first demo with this, just filling in some basic data, which I encourage you to do. If you get to this final summary tab and like the colors don't look the same, you're getting reference errors, it might mean that we have different versions of Excel. And if that's the case, let me know right away because I can change it so that it meets your version of Excel before you go way too much further.
So I'm on Excel 10.
Okay,
I
we
think
should
pretty
be
much,
completely compatible. How about the rest of the organization?
well, so the people who would be populating the 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 benefits and salary and people information are on Excel 10, but I cannot say that that is necessarily true for the entire organization. So we may have some people that are on, what is that, 7?
Yeah, and that's okay too. When we come across organizations who are still using like Excel 97, they're using.
Oh yeah, I think we're beyond that, but who knows? I mean, there could be somebody out there.
If you do come across it, I mean, it sounds like for the most part, everybody's updated. And we've tried to rebuild this so that it's actually compatible with some of the older versions. I'm just giving you a heads up. If you do come across the reference errors, just let me know right away, and we can fix it so that it doesn't mean you have
Okay.
to collect everybody's spreadsheet all over again and then start over.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
Great.
Well, So for the very next step, I'm just going to send you the blank document, and then if you want to try to enter in a division or just do like a test run and see how it works, or see if you come across any questions, then we can get right back on the phone and make sure you're seeing how it all flows and ties together. Um, but otherwise, we're going to start. Uh, let's see from where we were last time. I did just
So,
pull out the program inventory as we were discussing before. So we've got the entire program inventory from the general fund groups.
okay. So one more question though, is the notes tab.
Uh huh.
So, so what? How is that used?
Oh, there. It's just open. So if
Oh, it is.
it's just a blank worksheet in case there's anything that you wanted to communicate or anything that the departments are keeping track of as they go along the way.
Okay.
But nothing
Okay.
nothing really formal, nothing that ties back to the model or anything.
All right.
Um, I think I was just looking over the notes from last time that we were talking. And is there still the possibility that during the week of the 16th, 17th, that we might be able to do a program inventory um, workshop for the committee? The
So yes, I'm thinking that probably the best day that works, that looks like it will work so far, is it would be Friday.
Okay.
Um, and are you thinking that we need to have a populated spreadsheet, or,
Oh no,
I
not at
mean,
all.
okay,
This is just a inventory discussion where we're providing some of that high level discussion of how you go through creating a program inventory, and then providing
okay,
some of those examples primarily for the benefit of those who haven't gone through the exercise yet.
yeah, okay, all right. So I will finish. I will get that scheduled today. But yeah, it looks like probably Friday will work the best.
Okay, excellent,
Are you
excellent.
thinking a couple hours?
Oh, 1 hour to an hour and a half at max.
Okay, all
Um,
right. I will get that scheduled and then send you the time.
excellent. Um, like I said, I was able to pull up the uh, last version of the model, so we have the current inventory, which we'll be going through and providing you guys some of our comments on things that, hey, now that we have the time this year, maybe we can revisit some of these programs and um, make any suggestions and get those back to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
And then I still have the on the to-do list to finish that component of the proposal for the remaining part of the process, which I'll definitely get on that.
Okay, that sounds great.
Excellent. All right, Teresa. Well, I will send over the blank version as well as this recording, and then just like to hear from you about the 20th, and then go from there.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.